My guest is Richard Lui, an award-winning journalist and news anchor for MSNBC and NBC. He's also a columnist contributing to publications including USA Today, Politico, Seattle Times, Detroit Free Press, and San Francisco Chronicle. And he's the author of a terrifically insightful new book, Enough About Me. When Richard's father, Stephen, was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, Richard decided to set aside his growing career to care for his family. Selflessness, however, did not come easy. So Richard set out to explore why he struggled. In every decision, big and small, Richard discovered hidden opportunities to put others ahead of himself. And I'm really honored to be spending time speaking with him. And it's a pleasure to talk with you again today, Richard.
Gary, it's good to see you. It's good to see an old friend's face. It's been, I don't know how long we haven't seen each other, 3 years, but this is such an important topic. So thank you.
No, I appreciate you writing the book. Actually, to start, I love the title of the book, Enough About Me, The Unexpected Power of Selflessness. We always say that caregiving is the most selfless kind of love. But what I find interesting in the book is that you take that selflessness of caregiving and expand it out, teach us to expand it out into other aspects of our life, which I found just mesmerizing. Can you talk about the book and why you decided to write it?
Yeah, you answered the question because you know what brings us together, and that is caregiving, being family caregivers, and knowing that that's such an important human expression. And so that's what started it all. I was caring for my father, identifying how best to help my family, what is almost 8 years now ago. And as I often say is, I didn't set out 7 or 8 years ago when I asked my boss to work basically 3 days a week so I could fly from New York to California, which I still plan on doing when things get better, to help with my father and my mother. But along the way is all these re-identifications, all these re-IDs, all these like, what am I? What's my goal? What do I care about? Who is Richard? And that led to, of all things, a book about selflessness. And by golly, you know this, you never know what things are going to happen once you hit the family caregiving road. I mean, all sorts of things just pop open, It's almost like I grew 2 more eyes and I could see more. And so one of those things I can see is this idea that we can be selfless in everyday ways.
You were ready to walk away from a dream job to care for your dad with Alzheimer's, and you found that your boss, Yvette Miley, instead of walking in and thinking they were going to, hit the road.
That's right. Get out of here.
Get out of here. She's a family caregiver, which happens all the time, caregiver to caregiver, and actually helped you develop a plan to keep your career and create your new life as a family caregiver. What was in that plan and how did that work?
You're right. I thought she was going to say, Richard, we like you. You're a nice guy, but square peg, round hole, right? This is an 8-day-a-week job, and I knew that because she would send me all over the place to do things. She has always been there for me in helping to develop my journalistic point of view and skill. Instead, she said, let's come up with 4 ideas. Let's see how we can make this work. And let's meet again in a week. We met in a week, 4 ideas. We said, okay, when we're ready, now we have it down. You let me know when you're ready, Richard, and when you need to. A year later, I said, okay, we have to pull the lever. And that began the part-time, in effect, part-time vis-a-vis the number of days a week, but still working, more hours on those 3 days. And that's how it happened. And I was just like, I can't believe this. I was shocked.
Well, I think the lesson there is self-identity. You knew what you needed to do, and fearlessness. You knew you needed to step in, and no matter what happened, talk to people. And I know so many times we're afraid to tell our loved ones, our fellow family members, our employers, what kind of help we need, because we don't want them to suffer along with us. Or, in case of our employers, we may be afraid of losing our job. And more times than not, I think it's that people are ready, willing, and able to help. They just didn't know you were dealing with it. And if they knew that you were dealing with it, didn't know what you needed.
As soon as you know, bring it up. I think especially now that we're in a COVID period, it has opened up the selfless muscles of a lot of organizations and selfless muscles of a lot of individuals in organizations, and that we are now open to hearing about how you may need help. And we are open to hearing that we might be able to be creative as an organization. And so now more than ever, if you approach, before the dynamic, as you know so well, is do you tell your organization because they might think you're less capable, they will not invest in you as much, they will discount your abilities, similar to what women have had to face since the beginning of time, which is as soon as they would declare that they are expecting, along with their partner, a baby, potentially, or by themselves, that they got put in a certain category. And that is a similar dynamic that you've covered so well when it comes to work. So I was thinking about that, but sure enough, she got me now making a movie on caregiving and a book. So I blame it all on her. When I was writing in the book too, I said, "Dear Yvette, how would have you known that you would have changed my life? I'm now doing a movie. I've been able to take care of my dad. I've done a book, and none of this was in the plan. None of it."
And another movie coming up.
And another one after that. That's right. And, involving the topic of caregiving.
How has COVID affected your ability to be involved with caregiving for your dad?
The last year, I have only flown back twice. And both times I visited him through a window. Now that I was vaccinated 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago, I am planning to go back next week for the first time, without the concern, if you will, of actually seeing my mother physically. The last time I saw her, I was sitting outside her window in the street through a 4-inch opening, and I brought her the Chinese takeout she always likes to eat, and I put it in the garage. She opened up the garage. I slipped it in. She closed the garage, went and got it, sat on the inside on a couch. I sat outside, people walking by, because it's literally like a San Francisco street, and I'm sitting there eating my Chinese takeout. She's eating her Chinese takeout. Because otherwise she's stuck with boiled broccoli and ground turkey. And she gets tired of that. So this is a special little, meal. So I'm looking forward to it. I really am. And, Gary, it's, I know, just a small example of what so many families across the world have had to deal with. But I think that is that element of what COVID has brought back to us, is these simple things that are so special to all of us that we didn't realize and we took for granted. And I do believe that will be a more caring world, I think, after this, which is really heartening. It really is heartening.
I think so too. And along those lines, in your book, you introduce us to regular folks who have done remarkably selfless things. Did any one of them in particular stand out for you that you want to share with us?
How can you make me pick one of my kids? But I'm joking. Yeah, in the book, what I do is I lay out so it's a journalist approach to the book. And I try to bring some of the amazing people that I've met. And the reason why is because I believe, as you know, that we're living in a selfish pandemic, through a selfish pandemic, that the hate and violence is very, very cheap right now. And you only have to look at the mass shootings, mass killings we've seen this week, the week before, and the week before. But I look back to the last 7 years where I've been on air for hours and hours covering. Newtown, Connecticut is one of the early, high points of, or low points really, of that sort of story. And I've become, unfortunately, way too good at covering mass killings. So this selfish pandemic that we're living through, I also wanted to say, although these epitomes of being selfish people, the people killing people, is really that worst of the worst of the worst. And every time I'm covering one of those, that's one person. There are often 20 or 30 other people that bubble up around me that are the selfless heroes of that moment. And so we cannot let these ultimately super selfish people take the day. The people that must take the day are those who represent the opposite of that. And so I write about them in the book because I don't want us to forget that that is the real test of humanity. That is a real, result. And so some of those that I share in the book that will, I think they inspire me all the time. One is Peter Wang, who was at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, and he was in JROTC. He wanted to go to West Point, and he stood there when the gunman was there. And instead of running away because of his training and his love of what it meant to be in the military was to protect others, is that he held the gate open that had an auto close to it so the others could run by faster and escape. And one of the bullets found him, and he was killed that day. And as a 15-year-old, what was he doing? Why would he even think of that? He knows what a gun can do. He's in JROTC. And that is one of those, wow, what was it that formed who he was and who he is? And what's great about the story is that he inspired so many people, including me. In his funeral, he was given an entry into West Point posthumously.
Lovely.
An amazing example of selflessness. The idea is this is accessible. You don't have to be Mother Teresa or Desmond Tutu, and that there are things that we do every day that when the big thing happens, we're ready to go.
How did your parents model selflessness for you?
We lived through a time where food was not easy, and thanks to the welfare system, we had food stamps. And I'm used to the big chunks of cheese. I'm used to the Spam. I'm used to all of that stuff, and that's why I like Spam. That's why I like cheese, for the way I remember it. And they didn't want to change their careers. My dad, being a pastor, then became a social worker. He was a pastor, a youth pastor, didn't make enough money to take care of the family. Understandable. Then he picked the next biggest earning job as a social worker. Also not enough to take care of the family. My mother was a school teacher, stayed at home to raise us until I was in my teens. There was 4 kids is why. And then when she went back, she got asked for, would you like to become vice principal, Rose? Rose, would you like to move to this school? You get paid more. The students are easier to handle. They're less troublesome. Come on, Rose. And my mom every time would say no. And in fact, her last job, she chose the school that had the worst scores and the most violence of any elementary school in the city. And so I think, and they never came back to me and shook a finger at me and said, well, you got to do what we're doing. You see, you got to look at other people, No, they didn't do that. They didn't. But their choices, I think, later on in my life, I realized were just kind of hitting my head, right? And it's a thick head, but some of them made it through. And so I think the decisions, like caring for my father, wanting to write a book on this stuff, which is way above my pay grade, was that, it was way above my parents' pay grade too, but they still did it. And they didn't preach about it. They didn't pat themselves on the back. Mm-mm.
Well, you took another path, but you took their heart and their voices in your head. And, it's obvious that you come from givers.
They are givers, and learned a lot passively from them, I think. And it's possible to give too much. As soon as you said that's what I was thinking, Gary, because you and I know each other through family caregiving, and that is we can give too much. In fact, in the book we have a scoring card to see if we do give too much. It's very common.
That's one of my dog-eared sections. I love that. I really. What is? Are you too selfless?
That's right. Exactly.
Every caregiver needs that.
Yes, exactly. And that's why I brought it up, because I know that you have covered the topic and it's important for our family caregiving community. We kind of keep on giving. Like my mother, she went through that, and I write about it in the book, as you know, because you've read through that. And I call it the scream, because we have the cloud cameras to help with the caregiving, supervising, or assistance. And I heard her scream once, and I was like, ooh, that is not a scream of anger. That's a scream of help. This is a scream of sadness.
Anguish.
It's a scream, anguish. You got it. Exactly. And so that test is so important to us family caregivers, right?
Yeah, I love that, because you don't have to teach a caregiver to be selfless. You have to teach us how to create the muscle memory so we're selfless for ourselves at the same time we're selfless for others, and make sure that it becomes becomes ingrained in us.
That's right. And the point from that is we can't be perfect. I said this earlier. We're not going to be this idea of the Mother Teresa's or Desmond Tutu's. We're not going to be batting 1,000 all the time. There are times where we're selfish and selfless. It's an important balance that goes back and forth. And decisions aren't 100% selfless. They are at least 51% or greater. That's what we need to understand. We're not going to be perfect in that, but we should try at least and accept that imperfection in doing selfless things.
Hey, Richard, what's the one most important piece of advice you'd like to share with family caregivers?
Is to share another story of somebody else doing something selfless. And it's very accessible. It's very easy to do. You can either write it out in your social media, or you can share it on Facebook. You saw a story, share that, put one sentence above it. It's the beginning of the understanding of what it takes to be selfless. And it helps, it inspires others to do that. My collaborator, Nancy French, she shared a story the other day of somebody who, not somebody, but a laundromat that put a posting on their window. The posting said, if you are having some economic trouble because of the time we're living in, and you need a clean set of clothes for an interview, we will clean it for you for free. We want to put you in your best place. She shared that story.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we need to do, is share more stories like that.
Yeah. Anecdotes are everything when it comes to family caregiving. And I guess giving is getting. If you see yourselves as part of the continuum of everybody caring for everybody else, and maybe you talk silver linings in a tragic situation, maybe that's something that we all slow down a little through COVID, are all suffering in ways we hadn't suffered before, that we can actually now feel and share each other's pain, to where selflessness becomes more organic.
Yeah, this time has certainly caused us to pause and see the gaps that were already there.
Selflessness really is everything when it comes to caregiving. It's just how to manifest it as, I love your idea of the muscle memory, how to manifest it as a part of, your being. So
Yes.
you're not being a martyr, and
Yes.
you're not being selfish, that there's a great middle ground there.
That's right. Don't put it in the corner. Don't go visit it once a week, right? Make it part of the four walls in your house. Don't make it that destination. Don't make it that retreat that you go there once in a while. Make it just part of the four walls. Exactly.
Yeah. Everybody should get, where's the camera? Everybody should get the book. Can't have mine because I'm going to read it again. And I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you and everything you do. And just as you're being selfless, make sure you care for you too.
Thank you, Gary. And, I feel the same way about your work. And so let's keep on working together on this stuff.
I look forward to it.